So recently, while scrolling through the web, I found this cool component that Aceternity UI had, and I thought it'd be really cool to teach you guys how to build something using just vanilla CSS. So here we have this lamp effect component. Now, if I were to scroll up, you'd see that we have this light source that kind of increases in the width. We have this kind of like a light effect that coming from this line. And then we have this text that basically gets shown up. So it's pretty nice. And then also, if you look at it, the text is not a flat color. So basically, the portion that is closer to light is a bit light, and then the portion that is away is a bit dark. So yeah, I think it's a pretty cool component to build. So we're going to be building this using just HTML and CSS. The source code is in the description, so make sure to download that and play with it. Now, before starting, I'm going to be just showing you what we have built. So here we have our lamp effect. Now let's refresh the page. You see that we have our text coming up, and then also the lamp kind of increases in the width. It's pretty nice, and I think it's pretty cool to make something. So yeah, without delay, let's get started and let's learn to build this. So here I am in my code editor, that is Cursor, and then on my screen, we have index.html file and then style.css. Now, the index.html file has the boilerplate wherein I've linked the CSS, and also I've added the font family of Bricolage Grotesque from Google Fonts. I've set the title as lamp effect, and then we have an empty body. Now, in the CSS, we have the basic boilerplate when I've removed the margin and padding, and I've set this box sizing as border box. And then in the body, I've set it width and height to take the entire screen, a dark background, the color to white, and then align everything at the center using display flex. And then I've set the font family as Bricolage Grotesque. Now in the HTML, we're gonna start by adding the container div. Now this container would hold the entire component, including the text. And then within this, we're going to have our lamp div. Now, this lamp div would have some specific order of elements. The first one would be glow small. Then we have the line, we have the back, and then the glow big. Now, you need to add them in this specific order. If you don't add them in this specific order, then you might have to play with the z-index and then maybe add different z-index to these divs. But I'd say just make them in the specific order, and then you don't really need to add any z-index to your CSS. So what this two glow divs do, these two glow divs are basically the divs which make it look as if they're glowing. This line is basically the thin line with a flat color. And then the back is basically the back side of the line when we're making a div to hide the blur that we have on these two to not get shown behind the line, just so that it makes it seem as if the light has a bit of shadow behind and then the front side is lit up. So here we have the lamp div, and then right next to it, we have the text div wherein we have our text and h1 tag. Now we're done with our HTML, let's add the CSS. Now in the CSS, we target the container, and then the container has positioned relative since we're going to be placing the lamp absolutely. So we have that. And then we center everything using display flex and justify corner center and align items to center. And then we target the lamp div. We give it a position absolute and a fixed hard-coded width and height of 500 pixels and 400 pixels. Now, if this were a React component, obviously you'd pass in the width and height as the prop to this component from the parent. But since we're doing it in the vanilla way, we just specify a hard-coded value. Now, after that is done, we center everything here as well with display flex and justify content center. And then we target the line. Now, the line the line is basically pretty thin. So we have the height as 3 pixels, width as 90%. Basically, we take everything based off its container. Now, the main container for the line and all the different glow divs is this lamp. So since we have the hard-coded value here, we'll basically be taking everything in respect to these values. So we take 90% of its parent and then give this background color. After the line is done, we add an animation of line grow for 1 second with ease out and forwards. And then we target the glow big and glow small, and we add both of these width and height as 80% and 60% each. We give a background color, a border radius, and then set them as position absolute and translate it from the left side minus 50%, and then a bit top, we push it to top by negative 80 pixels. And then we add left 50% and then this filter blur, just so that horizontally it aligns at the center. But then vertically, we're pushing it a bit up and then setting this filter blur as 40 pixels. Now we add an opacity of 0.3 to both of these divs. Now we need some specific changes to the glow small, so we specifically target that. The smaller one would have a little lower height, same for the width, and then the background would be a bit different from the other one. And then this would have an animation of glow small grow of 1 second ease out forwards. And if I were to save it, you see that this is how it looks. Now, the reason for the glow small to also not look proper is because we have the opacity here set as 0.3. If I were to add an opacity of 1 here, you see that this is how it looks now. So the only thing that we have left is basically cover up the backside with the back div, and then it would almost be identical to how Aceternity do it. So let's remove that. Now we target the back. We set it width and height as 100%, set it as position absolute, background color to this dark color, and then align it horizontally as left 50%, transform as minus 50% horizontally, and vertically we push it up. So we have negative 100%. Now let's add the animations. So for the line grow, we want it to start from 30% and go all the way to 90%. And then for the glow small, we want it to start from with 20% opacity of 0 and then go all the way to 100% with width as 55% with opacity of 1. Then we have our text. Now before looking at the text, let's see how our lamp looks. So if I were to refresh, you'd see we have this cool animation and it looks pretty nice. Now let's head back and style the text. So for the text, we set the text align as center height as 120 pixels and overflow to hidden. Since we want to have more like a reveal animation, so we set the div to have a fixed height and we want to have it as overflow hidden. Now we'd place the H1 somewhere outside of the visible range of the text, just so that it appears that initially the text is hidden somewhere and then we kind of reveal it out. So we set the margin top as 200 pixels, just so that we have a gap from the lamp. And then we target the H1, we give it a font size of 50 pixels, font weight, and then we have this letter spacing. And then also we set the animation. Now, so initially we want this to be somewhere outside of the viewport. So we have it as 120 pixels beneath. And then since if you look at the final project, we don't have a flat color for the H1, but instead we have it as a linear grow. So the area or the portion that is closer to the light is a bit more white compared to the text that is away from the light. So the part that is away is a bit darker. So we want to set the linear gradient and want to set this as to bottom. So the first color, basically the top portion is a bit light and then the bottom portion is a dark. So we set it as that. Now this is basically the background of the H1, but not the text. So we want to need to clip it. So we have this WebKit background clip as text and then WebKit text fill color as transparent. Now we add the animation for the text. So we want to have the fade in animation. So initially it would be somewhere outside. So 120 pixels, translate Y. And then we want to have the final position as translate Y to 0. Let's save and let's see. So here, if I refresh, you see this cool animation happen. You could basically sync both of them all together. So instead of having here 1 second of delay, you could basically trigger them all together. Let's save. Yeah, it looks pretty nice. So yeah, that's it for this video. Hope this was fun. So I thought this would be like a really cool tutorial to have. Now, if you guys are trying to make more like a website not using React, but let's just say you want to build it using just HTML and CSS, I think components like these can really stand out. You could have them as for different section headers or so. So yeah, the source code is in the description, so make sure to check it out. So yeah, if you are new to the channel, if you haven't subscribed yet, please make sure to subscribe and turn the notification bell just so that you get notified whenever I upload a video. So meet you guys in the next video. Till then, bye bye, take care.